Okay, kids, it's time for another episode of Fueled by Weird Podcast, the only podcast where legendary heroes never die. I'm Chris Daly, and today I'd like to welcome Allan and Benn Liska from Green Archer Comics. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
Doing great. Excited to be here.
Doing good. Really happy to be here.
Awesome. I'm happy to have you guys here. And again, like we were saying before the show, thank you to Melissa. Shout out to her for getting us hooked up and getting us together because this is going to be a great chat. I'm very excited. All right,
Yeah, we are
guys.
too.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. I'm excited that you're excited. Makes it always makes it better, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so before we get started, I like to start things off with an icebreaker question. So today's icebreaker question is, in your opinion, what is the best superpower? And that can be open to either one of you. Well, it's open to
Ben,
both of you, but either one of you can go first. It doesn't matter.
Ben, why don't you go first?
Teleportation.
Okay.
Easy.
Thanks.
Because you've got the mobility power, you don't have to pay for gas anymore, no more flights. And if you are a particularly unhinged individual, it is a fantastic weapon to use. So
There you go.
that's my take on teleportation.
Nice.
So here's my problem with teleportation. You don't get miles with teleportation. And I have over the last 20 some years collected a lot of bat miles flying my bat plane. And
Okay.
so I wouldn't want to give those up by your stupid teleportation rules. But I see where you're coming from. Um, I'm going with just basic bulletproofness because
Okay.
if you can't be shot, that even if you aren't a particularly powerful superhero, there's just a lot that you get to do now because you
True.
can't die from bullets.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
that's a good one. I think for me, my favorite, and I always kind of use this answer as my favorite answer, but mine would be ice powers. Kind of like with what you said, Ben, you got a little bit of travel in there. It's not quite as clean as teleportation, but you still can kind of use that to travel. And ice powers, I just always have thought since I was a kid are cool. So
Yeah.
no,
Plus you
no,
always have cold drinks.
no pun intended. Yes, and always cold drinks.
And and it's good for the environment. I mean, if California's having a drought, you just ice power all over it and drought is gone.
There you go.
So I think that's a wonderful power as long as it's not Wonder Twins ice power, because those always seem kind of lame, because that was
I
like,
agree.
form of a bucket of ice. Okay.
Uh,
That's great if you're battling James Bond and you want to ruin his martini, but it doesn't really help in most situations.
it's true. Very true. All right, guys. So, summer's wrapped up. We're right in the middle of fall. Do you guys have any favorite activities you like to do during the fall time?
So we are big Halloween people at our house.
Mhm.
And so the house is all kind of decorated, and we live on a court, and all of our neighbors kind of hang out in the court on Halloween evening. And my wife and I don't have any trick or treat aged kids anymore,
Yeah.
but the rest of the families in the court do. So, we kind of take turns watching everybody's candy while the different families go out, but we grill and, kind of take one last chance to, have a barbecue in kind of a neighborhood community. So I really enjoy doing that. Otherwise, because of my allergies to mold, like going and viewing leaves isn't really a great option for me.
Sure.
But the Halloween for me it is.
That's cool.
We don't like we my wife doesn't really do Halloween, so we don't indulge in that a lot, although I enjoy the spooky stuff. So for me, it is the seasonal change. I love fall leaves. And I love just how crispy everything is outside, and I love having extra pockets with my hoodies and everything
There
like
you
that. So, and of course, the fall food is awesome because it's apple everything and it's pumpkin everything, and I'm there for it. I am ready for it.
Very cool. Yeah, fall, like we were talking about before the call, fall's a big season in my house. My wife is super big into Halloween. We've had a lot of our Halloween decorations up since like August. just because
Hmm.
it's spooky time all year long at my house. Um, I'm
Nice.
I'm not particularly a big fan of the spooky stuff. If I had spooky stuff like in your neighborhood, Alan, I might be a little bit more of a fan of that because that sounds awesome. Um, but yeah, so we still have a couple trick or treat age kids. My oldest is kind of about aged out, but she'll never be too old, really. Um, but yeah, we don't get a lot of trick or treaters. But it would be really fun to have some kind of like a block party like you have. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, it is really nice. And then I will say, as I've gotten older, um, I am a fan of a good soup. And fall
Okay, yeah,
starts
I get
soup
that.
season.
Yeah, yeah,
We were so excited the other day because we got to get pho for the first time this season, and
nice.
and just a good pho. And I know I sound like I'm 110, asking for my soup, but I
No, it's all
don't care.
good.
I just like a good soup.
It's all good. My wife does a pretty good taco soup that I'm a big fan of, and she doesn't like to
Ooh.
cook it during the
Mm,
summertime because it's too hot in
right,
the summer. So, and
right.
once in a while maybe, but yeah, we're getting to that season where that's going to be on the menu a lot more often. I'm pretty stoked. So I'm right there with you. Soup is awesome. All right, guys. So I did some digging and I found that you guys just recently got done at Balticon. How did that go?
Not Balticon, Baltimore Comic
Oh,
Con.
sorry. I thought it was the same thing. I apologize.
No,
No,
Baltimore.
so Balticon, go ahead, Ben.
Oh yeah, Balticon is the Baltimore Science Fiction Convention, which
Gotcha.
is usually
Okay.
held in the summer, I think. And then the this was Baltimore Comic Con, which is more comics and anime focused. So
Gotcha. Well, how did that go?
So it was good. There's the Instagram answer and then there's the real answer.
Yeah.
The Instagram answer, amazing weekend. Thanks for all of our fans for stopping by and so on. Um,
Yeah.
what I'll say is that one of the things that I love about Baltimore is it is very comics focused. And a lot of our favorite comics creators are there. So, as a networking event, it was excellent. And it always is excellent every year. And I love that. And especially when you get to go and talk to other people, like it's weird me being able to talk to somebody like Mike Grell, like with he's got an exhibitor badge and we have an exhibitor badge. And that's, I mean, not that I'm ever going to say that we're anywhere close to Mike Grell, but
Right.
that is,
Yeah.
he at least treats us like, oh, hey, you're an equal. And I'm like, oh, I'm not, but thanks, man.
thanks for pretending.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't the best for us financially, but it was still an amazing event because I love connecting and making those network connections with the other comic creators that are there.
Nice. Very cool. Very
Ben, what did you think?
Well, I was only there for Saturday, and I spent way too much money, but I had a lot of fun. One of the things is even when a con is slow, if you're there with a good team, you can turn it into something that is still fun. So you can, workshop ideas together. You can, like spot artists. You can go like spy on the competition and sabotage. I mean, investigate their table
Yeah.
and, stuff like that. So there's always a way to make the best out of the con. And, I don't I don't go into Baltimore very often, so it was like, Alan was very kind enough to be like, listen, you don't have to come back on Sunday. I appreciate you coming down, and he's an okay boss sometimes. The check cleared, so I'm wearing the shirt, but
There you go.
but so yeah, it was I still had a lot of fun doing it.
Very cool. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And I learned something today. So thank you for that. I didn't know there were two different cons. I'm close to the west side of the state, so I don't get to go out that often or even hear about that much stuff over that way. So that's
Okay.
that's very, very cool.
Yeah, Balticon is more of a gaming literary con than it is. I've
Okay.
been to a couple of them, and so it's more gaming literature than comics and stuff. So,
That makes sense. Okay, cool. Well, guys, so before we kind of get into the comics part of this, I have a couple more things I want to talk about. The first thing is when you guys aren't busy making comics, what are some of the things that you guys are into? What are some of your hobbies, your interests, stuff like that?
Ben, what do you
oh
got?
yeah, well, mine's on display. So,
There's a lot of stuff.
there's a set of D&D books back here. I am an
Ah,
avid
I
tabletop
noticed
RPG
those.
player.
Very cool.
So I love doing that. It is I find it very mentally intensive. So if I'm doing a creative project, I don't do a lot of game running because it
Sure.
takes up all the horsepower.
Yeah.
I read a lot, so Discworld shelf.
Nice.
And I have started doing picking up Transformers again. So I
Nice.
like vintage. Well, those aren't vintage; those are new. But I like, just general nerdy hobbies, RPGs, reading. Like it's always been reading, watching TV, comics, that stuff. So,
Very cool. Yeah, I used to be really big into D&D, but the problem around here is everybody wants to play and nobody wants to dungeon master.
oh
So
yeah.
it's hard to pick up a game and get involved in a game. I just recently got involved in one maybe a year or so ago and it was a pretty good time, but yeah, I would like to get more regular back into it. It's just it's hard finding a DM sometimes.
I have a chronic gaming problem. So much like buying books and reading books are two separate hobbies,
Oh,
buying
absolutely.
games and playing games are also two separate hobbies. So I pick up
Yes.
games a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't always have a chance to run them because of my work schedule and getting people together. So I've got one on the books for testing out a new system that I'm very excited about, and I can't wait to see how it runs.
That's
So,
awesome. Yeah, I can definitely relate to the games part because with video games more than anything else, I have a huge backlog of video
oh
games that
yeah,
I've bought and never played, but I'll be stuck on like the same like one or two forever. So yeah, I'm right there with you, man. Yeah.
yeah.
All right, Alan, what about you?
So I don't have a lot of free time at this point.
Okay.
It's the problem with starting a comic book company, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
But the big thing that I enjoy is I collect wine, and
Okay.
I'm a certified sommelier.
Nice.
And my wife and I love going to wineries and being able to spend time just out in there and kind of out in the winery enjoying the day and so on. And we've been to wineries around the world from, our home state of Virginia to, of course, California, New York, Bordeaux, of course, Champagne, and so many other places around the world. We try and find wineries wherever we go, or at
That's
the very
cool.
least, try the local wine because there are so many countries that produce their own unique wines and being able
Yeah.
to do that. We're both members of the Century Club, which are people who have tried wine made from at least 100 different grapes.
Wow. That's cool.
So being able to do that it's a lot of fun, and it's to me wine is interesting because every bottle of wine has a unique story. Because unlike beer, where it's like, okay, you get the hops down right, and then you make the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
Wine is very dependent on harvest, and so each vintage of wine has a different story. But then once it leaves the winery and goes to wherever you pick it up from, and then you open it and drink it, you're carrying on that bottle's story. So you wind up with a unique story in each bottle of wine. And I kind of like that as something that makes wine unique compared to other types of alcohol. So whether that is you're spending an evening at a great dinner with friends enjoying it, or you're drinking in a brown paper bag under a bridge, it's still a unique story for that bottle.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I never really thought about it that way, where every different wine has a story to it. That's really cool. Very cool. All right, guys. One more thing before we get into the books. I want to know what it took to get you to even write in the first place. So we're going to take a trip in the Wayback Machine now, and I want you guys to talk a little bit about what it was that inspired you both to become writers in the first place.
Ben is the writer. Um,
Oh, Ben is the writer. Okay.
Well,
I did
Ben,
terrible research today.
no, no,
no,
no,
no, no,
no, no.
no. Ben is much more the writer than I am.
Okay.
Uh, um, so Ben, you tell your writer story, and I'm more of an accidental writer. Let's say that.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, so yeah, what Alan means by that is I have been trying and failing longer than he has.
Okay.
It really the first time I remember actually ever writing something was it was in I was in grade school, and do you remember the TV show Quantum Leap?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that was one of our favorite shows when we were growing up. My mom loved it because Scott Bakula was on it. It was a little uncomfortable sometimes while she was watching the show with us.
I get
And I wrote a parody story called Quantum Bleep, where Sam Beckett ended up traveling through time and swearing uncontrollably. It's 100% grade school humor,
that's awesome.
and which is fine. That's where it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so and then I don't know. I've always been a good enough writer, and so when I got to college and I needed to pick a major, I picked English, and I started working on it. And the problem, it wasn't a problem, but so like I did a lot of English and writing in college, and then I've been tinkering with it ever since. I was in the college's literary magazine for a short story in there, and then Real World happened, and it found out that it eats up a lot of time. So I've always poked at it, but I've never really like gone all the way for that. So it's just, it's always been something I've tinkered with. I've read every writing book you can imagine, done all kinds of stuff, done some workshops, done some feedback for people. And then a couple years ago, Alan comes to me. He's like, "Hey, um, I started a comic book company." I was like, "What?" And then I had to learn a slightly new skill set because he asked if I would, help out with some editing projects and stuff. So that's kind of how I started getting into the comic books, is I'd been out of comics for a while. And so Alan made me get back into comic books, but like instead of like tiptoeing in,
Yeah.
Alan said, "Hey, come look at this thing on the pool." What? And then he pushed me in.
Okay.
So and so going to help, helping him, I had to learn, well, how do you write a comic book script? And like how do you edit a comic book script and things like that, and still learning, still trying new things, obviously. Like I've only been doing this for a little while, but it's really, it's really kind of opened up some my prose writing, and that with like another podcast that I follow about writers, and that particular writers group has kind of spurred me to actually submit things and actually do things and finish projects and get it going, which, as any creative will tell you, the finishing it and getting it out the door is the hardest part of
Oh
any
yeah,
project, because I could
absolutely.
tinker with it all day long. We were just working on a project and we got to the end and I was done, and except for like proofing and stuff. And I was like, "Do you want to like look at it again?" I'm like, "No, no, I don't ever want to look at it again. Please put it out the door so I can say that it's done."
Yeah, I get that.
But yeah, that's kind of how it goes. Like I do mostly prose, mostly speculative fiction, sci-fi, fantasy, urban fantasy. I love urban fantasy, and a lot of it comes
Nice.
from my time gaming. So
Sure.
there's a little bit of a Venn diagram there, and that's
Nice.
kind of where I come from with it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm an intelligence analyst by trade, and so I do a lot of writing for that. And because of that, and for those who don't know, intelligence analyst, particularly, I look at cyber criminal and cyber criminal activity. So all the kind of all the people trying to scam you, how they do
Yeah.
it, what they're doing, and how to stop them. And because of that, I've written a few technical books on various things. So how to secure DNS, books about ransomware, books about NTP, which is a protocol nobody knows anything about, and nobody bought the book. So that is, but that's not writing. That is, sort of more of a technical skill than
Yeah.
a writing skill.
Some technical
And
writer is going to be real mad at you right now.
that's yeah, there is a difference between what I see you do versus what I do.
Yeah.
Whether or not somebody wants to agree with me, that is true. If I tried to tell a story in the way that you do, for a technical book, the editors would not approve. I know because I've tried. Uh, a few years ago, 2023 to be exact, I got this idea from talking to a few friends of mine. I grew up, our local NPR station uh, every Sunday night plays old time radio shows. And so I grew up listening to yours truly, Johnny Dollar. That's one of the radio shows that they play, mostly because I was a terrible student. And so every Sunday night I was trapped in my room, getting all my homework done for the weekend.
Right.
And and so I always love that. And there you can now listen to that. There's YouTube channels that have it, there are podcasts that have it, there's a Sirius XM station that has it. So there are a lot of different ways to listen to it. So for me, yours truly, Johnny Dollar, has always been my comfort food, in the way like The Office is for my son. So if I'm on a plane and I've got a report to do, I've got all the episodes on my phone. I can plug my headphones in and type away and just have it playing in the background.
Nice.
And I met a few other people that do ransomware incident response the way that I do, who also like listening to those old-time radio shows. And so we would swap and share them. And somebody suggested uh, back in like 2022, hey, it'd be really fun to do a Johnny Dollar comic book. Um, and I said, yeah, that would be kind of cool. It'd be nice to see something like that. And I mean, how hard can it be to make a comic book? And it turns out really hard.
Yeah.
Um, Turns out just because I've read a lot of comic books my life, throughout my life, doesn't mean that I actually knew anything about making a comic book. But, I mean, you put my analyst hat on, figured out the process, and bought a whole bunch of books on how to write comic scripts, from a a bunch of different people, and started to put together an idea for what I wanted to do. Um, uh, uh, then I realized that you'd have to have somebody edit it. Ben didn't do that one, but I got somebody to come in and do the editing for it to make sure that it made sense. And then I had to pay for it. Because neither Ben nor I can draw. So I went to my wife and I said, "Hey, take some money out of savings and make a comic book. Is that okay?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Well, I'm going to do it anyway, but then I'll do a Kickstarter, and I'm sure we'll get some of the money back, right?" And she's like, "So you're starting a comic book company?" I'm like, "No, no, no. I just want to do this one thing. It's a one-off. I think it'll be kind of a fun little thing." Well, our first Kickstarter, we made almost $10,000 on.
Wow.
We haven't had anywhere near that success on any of the others.
Yeah.
But on that one, even the subsequent Johnny Dollars, we didn't have that kind of success. But suddenly I had enough money to make not just the one Johnny Dollar comic book, but three Johnny Dollar comic books. And I thought, well, hey, this is easy. Why doesn't everybody do this? And then reality kind of slapped me in the face as we started
Sure.
going, and you realize, oh yeah, you're not going to get 10 grand on every Kickstarter that you do.
Right.
But once I started doing it, I really fell in love with the process and the ideas. And the problem is, Ben and I have all of these ideas. We don't have unlimited funds, but we have all of these ideas. And especially when Ben and I, like Ben said, when we're at a con together, and especially if it's a slow con, we will riff off each other and come up with script ideas, and we can kind of like do a treatment, put together the script, go back and forth, and then, oh, hey, here's the next comic book that we want to do, kind of thing. And so that has been, it's such an incredible creative outlet to be able to do that. And then seeing you put the words down on paper and artists bring that to life, and you're like, oh my God, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. This is amazing. And
Yeah.
then you have a comic book, and it really does become addictive. It's like, oh, okay, I want to do this next one and this next one and this next one. And we have to, slow ourselves down a bit, because again, we don't have unlimited funds, and
Right.
so we have to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible with all of this. But and that's the business side of me talking. The comic book side of me just wants to make some more comics.
Yeah.
Um, but I've really enjoyed that part, and because so much of my life is sort of rigorous and analytical, it's nice to have that kind of creative outlet. It's also nice, because so many of our comics do have a cybersecurity theme, to have to be able to create worlds where the good guys win, because so much of what I do, the good guys don't win.
Right.
And so being able to kind of have that in there, that's um like the creators of Superman wanted to create somebody that would, win and always be good. And I'm not comparing our characters to Superman. Please don't.
Right. I
Uh,
get it.
yeah, please, please. This isn't a Beatles Jesus moment here. I'm just saying that
Right.
it is nice to have a world where, oh, hey, you actually go get to punch the ransomware dude. Nice, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a special kind of magic when you see something that you've conceptualized come to life by an artist. It's hard to describe unless you've been there yourself. It's almost like, a birth of a child almost, in a theoretical sense, really. It's pretty magical.
Yeah, it is. So,
And
like I
and we
said,
can say that as all guys because we don't have to go through the suffering of the
Yeah, well,
child coming
yeah.
out.
yeah, yeah,
We just get to see the
Yeah.
end result.
Yeah. I should clarify that. It's not quite the same as the birth of a child. It's witnessing the birth of a child is kind of the same. But yeah,
Yeah.
I've had a few. I haven't actually done full-blown character or full-blown comics or anything like that. But like you, Ben, I used to dabble in a lot of prose stuff.
yeah,
I'm trying to get back to that. But
yeah,
I've had a few characters where I've conceptualized and talked to an artist like, hey, this person has this and this and this, and once they're like, does it look like this? And I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing.
yeah. So, like, there's a scene, like, like every because I'm not an artist and because I'm not used to doing stuff for comic panels as much.
Right.
Like there are times when it doesn't quite like it's good, it works, it fits the story. It's not exactly as I envisioned it in my head, but I can't hold
Yeah.
the artist to that, right? That's not fair. Except like there were like two or three panels in the latest book we did that like there was one that I was like, yes, that is exactly how I pictured it in my head. Thank you. That is amazing. And like
Yeah.
our artists are fantastic, don't get me wrong, but like, sometimes the bridge between like what's in your head because I despite not being able to draw, I do a lot of visual storytelling. Like if I can lock
Right.
on to an image in a story, it'll like that'll speed the rest of it along. Like I
Yeah.
woke up one day with an image in my head of a sword being used as the joystick to pilot a spaceship. I rolled out of bed. I went to my office. I sat in my comfy chair and I wrote 2,600 words for this He-Man knockoff short story
Yeah.
that I wanted to do. So I was like, okay, I got that out of my head. And having an artist do that kind of helps.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, sometimes the artist doesn't get it exactly how you have in your head, but that's kind of the fun part about giving them
Right,
the artistic licenses. They'll do it maybe a little bit differently, or they'll maybe like how you had it originally in your head doesn't really work.
right,
Like with the physics of it doesn't quite work, or like a body doesn't normally move like that. So the
right.
way they end up having come out with it sometimes comes out even better than what you could have even imagined.
Right. Yeah, like artists have to like, I have a one of my gaming buddies is actually a professional artist. His
Yeah.
cover is up there. And
Nice.
he he'll explain in exacting detail why what I wanted doesn't really work or can work or here's how I modified it to make it work. And just watching that process happen is really neat,
For
especially since
sure.
I don't have that skill set. I don't have that
Yeah.
talent. So like watching someone else do it, I'm like, that is amazing. You are a boss.
Yeah, it's pretty magical
Yeah.
for sure. All right, guys. So I want to talk about your comic, The Green Archer. It's the one that just recently successfully funded on Kickstarter. Congrats,
Yep.
by the way, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Um, so first of all, before we do anything else, for those that don't know about the Green Archer comic, why don't we take a minute to talk about what it is?
So the Green Archer is based on a book by Edgar Wallace, and our story is a sci-fi fantasy story that covers 700 years across six different stories. And yeah, that's kind of the basic summary. That it's probably a little better written than I remember, but the original Edgar Wallace story was written in 1923. And the story itself is a kind of, what would you say, like a mystery, a bit of a mystery action type thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's typical pulp novel. In fact, it was released in pulp magazines and turned into a book afterwards. So
Nice.
it's got those built-in cliffhangers and so on. Um, a very a very small part of the story is the lore of the Green Archer, which is this archer who's hung in 1487 and then stays around to haunt Gar Castle in Scotland for, at the time, 500 years. That's what we kind of glommed onto for our story. We kind of ignored the rest of what was happening. Yeah, we'd pull in characters and so on for references, but we really liked the idea of this archer that protects Garcastle and by extension sometimes Scotland. And we changed it a little bit because in the original story he's a spoiler for a 100-year-old story. It's a dude dressed up in a mask for playing on the legend. It's actually a couple of dudes dressed up in a mask
Yeah.
playing on the legend. But in the original story, he was supposed to be a ghost. But we're like, what if we didn't do it that way? What if we made him a real person who dies and then comes back? Can't be killed, except that eventually he can be killed over time. And that allows us to tell different Archer stories in different time periods. So it's different Archers over different time periods, each one carrying on the legend of the Green Archer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was cool because then we could tell, an origin story. Then we could tell a story set during the Scottish witch trials. We could tell a World War II story, a revenge story. Ben has a futuristic zombie story. So it gives us a chance to tell stories, but it also gives us a chance to bring in different artists because the archer doesn't have to look the same,
Yeah.
in every story because it's a different archer.
So it's kind of like a James Bond or a Doctor Who, just it kind of evolves throughout the years. So just passing on the mantle.
Yeah, I mean, almost more like a phantom,
Okay. I like that.
where in a way that very much can't get us sued, kind of like a phantom,
Okay. Yeah.
where
Okay.
In a
I get
legally
that.
distinct way from the Phantom.
I get that.
right, right,
Okay.
and we do have some things that the phantom doesn't have. Like there is a level of power that they get from something that we call, what is it, the abyss of time?
The Abyss of Time.
Yeah, the abyss of time. There's a thing which is a real thing in Scotland called the abyss of time, and I'm like, oh, we have to use that because it's right near Edinburgh, which is where the fictional Garcastle is,
Yeah.
and so we're like, yeah, okay, we're using that too. So there are some actual powers derived, which the Phantom doesn't have. But right, it's somebody assuming the mantle, and every story that we have so far, there's been somebody to guide them as the new one, but there doesn't necessarily have to be.
That's very cool. My friend Mike Belcher, he actually has a comic that's kind of similar called The Man in the Mask, who it originally started as like the grandpa who just put on a mask and went and fought crime, kind of like Batman, but kind of more just like a regular everyday guy. But then, the mantle kind of got passed down to the grandson, and it's very cool. So that's very, very cool. So, I like I said, you guys just had a recently very successful Kickstarter. You got it all funded and everything. Why don't we talk a little bit about, how the Kickstarter went, what kind of stuff did you guys have to offer? What happened during the Kickstarter? Let's give you guys a minute to kind of do a victory lap and talk about the Kickstarter a little bit.
Ben, do you want to kick it off or you want me to?
Well, you organized the Kickstarter, so I have some visual aids here. I brought my rewards down, so we have visual
Awesome.
references. If you would like, if people will
Sure.
pardon me, flashing the Green Archer logo as I reach up here. I told you the check
Um,
cleared.
yep. Um, so one of the things that I love being able to do in a Kickstarter, and it's not always the smartest thing to do, is I love being able to bring in new artists to do covers for us. And sometimes I bring in expensive artist to do covers for us that we may not see the results, but it's just an artist that I really want to work with.
Sure.
So, like the cover you see right behind Ben, the black and white cover, that's a Sean Martinborough cover. Who's done the Red Hood and a few other stories, and I love that. And this
Like
one
that.
we got UV coated, so it's got a nice shiny feel to the blacks on it.
Very cool.
But um, but for us, this was the most ambitious project that we've ever had because we created a trade almost out of nothing. So last year on a whim, we did the first Green Archer comic, and that wasn't kickstarted or anything. That was just, hey, let's we had an idea for a short story that we submitted to what was the name of
Faster than light.
the Faster Than Light anthology. So we submitted it, it got accepted, and we're like, we could tell a couple of other Green Archer stories, right? Only silly me, I hadn't created any of the lore then. So I wrote a story, Ben wrote a story, and then we wrote a story together, and there's three different lores in all three. Um, and so that was part of the challenge. The first thing we had to do with this one was, hey, let's retcon this so that it all fits in the same lore.
Yeah.
And so we did that. And that was like something I should have done from the start, but didn't think about. And then we're like, well, let's write three brand new full length comics, write and illustrate and everything. And so that's what was super ambitious for us because obviously I'm a big believer. Obviously, artists should get paid, but also artists get paid up front. I don't, well, when the Kickstarter's over, we'll give you money.
Yeah.
So this was putting out a lot of money to get the artwork done so that by the time we were ready to launch Kickstarter, the book was basically finished. We were still going through some lettering and some editing and so on, but it was basically finished.
Gotcha.
And but one of the challenges with selling indie comics is that our economies of scale are very different than Marvel or DC's, obviously.
Sure.
So, I mean, anybody who's backed anything on Kickstarter knows that generally you're paying $10 for a 32-page comic, versus, $5 for what used to be a 32-page comic. Sometimes it's a 10-page comic or a 15-page comic with 10 pages of ads.
Yeah.
But we wanted to be able to do something that was going to be a little more affordable for everybody. So we have, four 30-some page comics in there that we could then price it at $25 because at that point the printing cost made sense for us to be able to do that. So
Sure.
it was a better value. Plus, you're getting three amazing stories. So I wrote a story, Ben wrote a story, and Dr. Angelie Shear, who wrote some of our Johnny Dollar stories, she chipped in and wrote a story as well. So it's again three different stories, three different new stories, plus the three old stories in there. And it's been a lot of fun creating it. And the Kickstarter was a lot of fun to do because we were able to do a couple of cool things in there. We did so the 1923 Green Archer book was turned into a movie in 1925, a silent movie serial, which is largely considered lost. But we managed to find some of it at the UCLA library. So we did a watch along with backers of the 1925 movie, what is available of the 1925 movie. And then we did a second watch along with the 1940 movie serial, but just the last 15 minutes or so. So it kind of mirrored what we had seen in the recovered footage. So that was a lot of fun giving them a chance to do that. We also produced a documentary on the Green Archer and sort of the impact that the Green Archer has had over the years. So,
Cool.
one of the things that we talked about in the Kickstarter is how one of the reasons the Green Arrow exists is because of the success of the Green Archer movie serial. So the Green Archer movie serial, the second one was in 1940. So 1939, you had Robin Hood. 1940, you had the Green Archer. And then Mort Weisinger, one of the artists at DC, his editors came to him and said, "Hey, Arrow guys are really popular. We need an Arrow guy." And so we called his Arrow guy Green Arrow. And in fact, pretty sure that name was just directly lifted because one of the chapter titles of the Green Archer is the Green Arrow.
Yeah, that's cool. Ben, what about you? What are your thoughts from the Kickstarter?
Well, like Alan said, it was a lot of fun. The Going through this is the first full-length comic script that I ever wrote, so that was a special kind of nerve-wracking for me.
Oh, sure.
But it was the best kind of nerve-wracking. So, a little behind-the-scenes lore here. Alan drops like a link to a news story about spoiler brain implants, and is like, "Hey, maybe we can use
Okay.
this for a Green Archer story." I was like, yeah, I could probably work with that. So it built this zombie apocalypse story based on the brain implants and the Green Archer. So it's a little you got a little the this is the far future version of the Green Archer, and we had already mixed a little bit of technology and magic in that one with the core premise. So I was like, let's go a little bit farther with that. And again, working with our artists to get everything. They did a fantastic job. Absolutely thrilled with how the pages turned out, and the it was a lot of fun. We did a lot of fun promos. So you might see this here, this guy right here. That is real. That is my bow. I've had it for about 20 plus years. I don't shoot very
Cool.
often,
Yeah.
but one of the promos we got to do was I went out and I taped um a bunch of like keywords for like sci-fi and fantasy to an archery target. And I joked that we were going to brainstorm via doing archery. So there's a video out there of me
Nice.
shooting the keywords.
That's awesome.
Now I know this is the internet and no one ever lies on the internet, but I have to
Sure.
confess that I did lie because I am not that good of a shot. So it was going to be the Green Archer versus dinosaurs if my arrows did the talking. So I
Wow.
had to massage the results so that we ended up with zombies in the far future for promotional purposes.
Nice.
I
And
apologize in
that's the
advance for
problem.
lying.
Yeah, and that's the problem with doing the archery after you wrote the script. Because that would have been perfectly fine if it had come up with the Green Archer versus dinosaurs.
Yeah, it
Um,
gives you a chance for a caveman story, right?
Right? Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
I told Alan the Abyss of Time. I was a huge Doctor Who fan, not as much as a fan now, but like you
Yeah.
could totally Doctor Who this up and make sure and like you can mix and match Green Archers from all time periods with
Yep.
that.
There you
yep.
go. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And and so that was another fun thing that we got to do is, Anjali went out and she did a whole skit of herself shooting archery and commenting. Like she went all in, like Renaissance Festival, all in, which
That's
was
cool.
absolutely incredible. And then one of our artists, Dan Butcher, who does the Vanguard series, it did did a couple of archery shots for us as well, and that was fun, just getting everybody to shoot bows and arrows and make that the promo instead of the standard Kickstarter promos.
That is a cool way to do it for sure. Now, you had said, Ben, you pulled down some of the rewards. Do you want mine showing off a few of those?
Oh yeah, not at all. Let's see what we got here. So this is Dan Butcher's cover. Alan, you came up with the idea for this one, right? This
I
is
like
a
that.
an
This is
homage
a
to the
tribute. Yeah, it's Justice League 100. So in Justice League 100, the original Justice League 100 is the death of, oh, what are they called?
the Seven Soldiers of Victory.
Thank you, the Seven Soldiers of Victory, which were one of the early team ups with Shining Knight and the Crimson Kid, Star Spangled Kid, Crimson Avenger. Green Arrow, Speedy, and Vigilante were all in that. That was kind of leading comics before DC, and then DC acquired the rights to all of them. And in issue 100 of the Justice League, the Seven Soldiers of Victory disappeared, and I'm just like, oh, that's kind of a cool tribute. So let's use that cover. Only it's all Green Archers.
Yep.
That's
And
cool.
then we've got this one, which is absolutely gorgeous.
I like
Yeah,
that.
so that's a foil cover. Can you take it? And I hate to do this to you, Ben,
My
because I
God,
know it'll lose the value.
you're gonna lose
Take
the
it out of the
resale
wrapper.
value. What's wrong with you? Didn't you ever collect toys as a kid?
But Annie Wu is one of my favorite cover artists. She does a lot of the covers for Ben. Why am I blanking on the uh
That's
why am I
cool.
blanking on what series she does? The one that's led by Black Canary.
Birds of Prey?
Thank you. She does a lot of the covers on the Birds of Prey series,
Okay.
but she's absolutely one of my favorite cover artists. And getting onto her schedule is really tough because she's very much in demand. So when we got that,
Sure.
I'm like, do whatever you want. Just put an Archer on the cover. And I thought that came out. The original art came out so well. I'm like, ooh, we should do a foil cover of that. And so we did that as kind of a special offering.
That's
Yep.
cool.
And then we've got, let's see here. You've already seen the black and white cover, and then we've got let me see if I can put these together correctly. Here we are, our Sarah Meyer combo cover.
Yeah. So Sarah Meyer
Oh,
is
nice.
local in the Baltimore area, and we wanted them to do a connecting cover for us. And so that's the one on the left is the main cover. Um, and then you had the option to get the connecting cover, and then we had a special stand made up by the great guys over at Wham Stand, which if you've never used Wham
That's
Stand
cool.
before and you own a comic book company, I highly recommend them. The only problem with using Wham Stand products to display your stuff at con is sometimes you get more questions about the stands than you do about your comics. Um, but we absolutely love them, and they came up with this custom stand so that because we do have again very small publisher, but we have some pretty loyal fans that love to display our stuff, and we wanted to kind of give them something. Hey, this is a thing you can do to reward that to kind of display our art behind you in meetings or on video conferencing. And in fact, the other thing we did because we do have a number of loyal fans is in January for people that back at a certain tier, they're all invited out, and we rented a movie theater, and we're going to watch the 1961 version of The Green Archer, and then watch the documentary we did on the big screen. And it's a chance to get everybody together and thank them in person, and so on. And Ben will be there and signing covers, and we're just really happy to be able to have built this community of people that like our work and appreciate our work, and that means so much. Like I didn't think we'd have that, and we do now, and that's kind of amazing to me.
And
Yeah, that's cool.
real quick, just a shout out. This is I had this done specifically. My friend and gaming buddy Matt Plog is an artist, and I was gonna have this put in as like a splash page at the end of my book, at the end of my story, but it ended up being an even number of pages. And if you've ever made a comic book, you know if you end on an even number of pages, you don't add more unless you have ad space to sell.
Sure.
But so Alan's like, we'll make it a virgin cover. I was like, thank you.
That's
So
very
And,
cool.
and that wound up actually being one of our most popular version covers. Not, I'm sure, nothing to do with Ben sending everybody over specifically to that one.
and so also quick shout out, Matt Plug did the art for my short Viridian Vengeance in here, which I absolutely loved. He did great work. They all did great work. They all
Yeah.
did great work. So that is, not I don't want to single Matt Plug out. His head will get too big if he ever sees this, but they all did fantastic work, and I'm really really thrilled with how it turned out.
Very, yeah, those look amazing. That's very, very cool. And that's cool you guys are doing a watch along. That's something you don't hear a lot in Kickstarter rewards. So that's super rad.
Well, when you make a comic that has a public domain movies, you can do that.
That's
We
fair.
did that. We actually did the same thing during our Buck Rogers Kickstarter, where the Buck Rogers movie serial was in the public domain. So we got together with Chris Field, who helped write that book, and in fact did most of the writing of it, and the three of us did a watch along with that, and it's again it's a way to build that community with our supporters, because it's something that we can all kind of do together and enjoy and celebrate these pulp characters.
Yeah,
So
for sure. So I want to ask, with your company, Green Archer Comics, it seems like you guys do have a lot of pulpy um, public domain characters that are kind of being reimagined for the modern day and kind of like brought back. What was it that kind of inspired you guys to kind of go that route?
I think it's just what we love. It, so obviously Johnny Dollar was the start, and then we're
Sure.
like, well, what else do we like? And that's where like the Press Guardian came next, and the Press Guardian is this forgotten pulp hero that's defender of the freedom of the press, which to me is like, okay, that's something that's really important and really relevant right now. So let's not him, because we want to leave those characters as they are. But let's
Yeah.
take his granddaughter and let's have her go and do that, kind of like what you were saying with your friend, where the original press guardian is still the original press guardian, but his granddaughter is now out defending freedom of the press and punching Nazis. And so like those kind of things were important to us. Now we did go back. So one of the things that really bothered me about the Press Guardian is the original artist. Um, why am I blank? I'm sorry, I'm just tired.
That's
What
okay.
is
It's
what's the
okay.
original artist name, Ben? Do you remember?
I do not remember. I
Okay. Well,
apologize. You're the comic book history nerd.
yeah. So the original Press Guardian was written by a Jewish artist who was very much, and the comic only ran in 1940. And the artist was very much aware of what was going on in Nazi Germany at the time, but until January of 1941, when Captain America punched Hitler on the cover, you couldn't really punch Nazis. So he spent time punching a lot of guys named Hans and Franz, not
Yeah.
necessarily Nazis. So we're like, that ain't right. So we took him and we took the Clock, another well-known pulp character, and we had them. There you go. Oh, yeah, open the cover. Or is that wrapped? Because his name's in there.
Let's see here. Is it in the George A. Brenner in
That's
1936?
that's the Clock.
Okay, and then press guardian Mort Meskin for Pep
Mort Meskin,
Comics.
there you go. Yeah.
Mm.
So Mort
Nice.
Meskin, and so we wanted to write a story where they got to go back and actually punch some Nazis, and we based it on a real German operation, Operation Pistorius, where the Nazis landed a sabotage team in Long Island that was meant to go around and blow up factories and stuff like that, kind of like a reverse Hogan's Heroes. For any of your listeners that are over the age of 50 and know that reference. Um, and now they were immediately captured by the Coast Guard in the original history, but we're like, in best comic book fashion, what if they weren't? Who would be there to stop them? And of course the Press Guardian and the Clock have to team up and just punch Nazis for 32 pages. So
Yep.
That's
It was a
awesome.
lot of fun to do. And again, Dan Butcher did the cover and the interiors for this. He was fantastic. And it's a tie-in to the Big Green Archer comic we just did.
That's cool. Very
So
cool.
we had a lot of fun with that. I had to yell at Alan about the title in the Green Archer omnibus thing we did, because he was just going to call it 1941, and it was like, maybe we should do something different. I'm like, yeah, we should probably just give it a give it a
yeah.
give it a cooler title, Alan. Come on.
That's awesome. Well, it's really cool that you guys are kind of helping preserve these older characters or even introduce them to a newer generation because there's a lot of those really pulpy characters that are really cool and definitely deserve to be put back in the spotlight. I know there's a podcast that I listen to, the Red Panda, that's kind of the same thing. That was kind of it was an original story that was kind of brought back and modernized a little bit, but it's stuff like that is super interesting. And in a world full of, heroes and, villains that are kind of copy paste from other ones, it's good to kind of bring some of the ones that inspired the ones from today back and kind of give them some spotlight.
Well, and it's funny. So when we did the watch along of the Buck Rogers serial, the first thing you see in that Buck Rogers serial is the way they did the intro is the Star Wars crawl, where the words kind of went
Uh-huh.
across the top. But of course, it's not the Star Wars crawl, it's the Buck Rogers crawl
Right.
that George Lucas took and used in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And so, and Buck Rogers to me, I think is really important because, in the 1930s, when, in the middle of the Great Depression, one of the things that saved local papers was everybody having to go and read the next Buck Rogers installment every day.
Yeah.
Like they kept their paper subscription for that. So it was so important as like the first real, not the first, but I think the first more widely accepted sci-fi hero. And it's had an impact on everything since. Buck Rogers begat Flash Gordon, and that begat, Planet of the Apes and Space Odyssey 2001 and Star Wars and so on and so forth. And Star Trek, in fact.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so reminding people who that is. It's funny. I don't think you were there for this, Ben. We were at one, I think it was Fairfax Comic Con, and somebody came up and saw the Buck Rogers comic, and they're like, "Oh, is that like Duck Dodgers, but Buck Rogers instead?" And I'm, "Oh man, Buck Rogers came first. I swear." But it is nice, again, without being preachy about it, we love being able to kind of educate people on, yeah, this is kind of the history of this stuff and it's important. And a
Yeah.
lot of it is fading away.
Yeah. No,
And
that's very cool.
going back and reading some of these classic works, like, we went through and we read the original Buck Rogers novels. We may have a project coming up that required reading another older novel. That, just getting these snapshots of the world when these books were released, because
Yeah.
everything, everything that's your world informs your writing a lot of the time. So like
Sure.
you can get a snapshot of so much that happened and like the attitudes of a lot of things, some of which would not fly today. But
Yeah, absolutely.
it's just a very fascinating look at what was and how some of it still works. I went back and read one of the original Tarzan novel, and I'm like, this still is really, really, really impressive. Like this is
Yeah,
amazing. So yeah.
Yeah, we
absolutely.
joke with people all the time that we took the two original Buck Rogers stories, Armageddon 2419 and The Air Lords of Han, and we just removed all of the racism from the original stories because
Yeah,
that's bad. But
right.
there were cool things in there, like in 1928, Philip Francis Nolan was talking about drone warfare, unmanned drone warfare. And video conferencing, and of course the ray guns and all the other things that we have. So it's worth preserving, it's worth preserving it in and of itself, but it's also worth telling that story in a way that's accessible to modern audiences without taking away any of the things that are really good about the story. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Very cool. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense for sure. And like you said, there's a lot of, you take out all of the stuff, like you said, Ben, that's not really suitable for today, that wouldn't really pass
Hmm.
today. You take out all that stuff. There's still a pretty decent story in there, and it's
Right.
definitely
Yeah.
one that not enough people have got the chance to read. So it's very cool that you guys are kind of helping, preserve that.
Yeah. Also, by buying old books, it's an
Yes.
excuse to
Yes.
buy old books
There you
and
go.
read them and stack them on the shelf over there. So,
Yep, absolutely. All right, so we kind of talked about it a little bit, but after, now that this Kickstarter's wrapped up, you guys have the watch party in January. What do you guys have coming next? Like, what's your next big focus that you can talk about?
So the in January we'll be doing the final installment of our new Press Guardian. So that'll come out in that the art for that is already done. That's kind of a Benless project that because that's kind of my pet project. And then the big thing next year is this. And I apologize for to Ben because I know you don't like seeing books all marked up and
Yeah,
highlighted,
that's fine.
but Meet the Tiger is the first The Saint book. And that is in the public domain, and we're going to be releasing a comic based on that. In fact, we have our get together in the office this weekend or Saturday to kind of map out exactly what we're going to pull from this and so on. And and this is kind of a big one for us because the Saint is such an important character to so many people. This was the prototype for James Bond. This
That's
is
cool.
other than not being a spy, very specifically not a spy. He was a modern day Robin Hood, and
Right.
as he was often described by Leslie Charteris, and being able to tell that story is so important. I was uh, reading up on the history of the Saints. So aside from reading the book, we also read the history and try and make sure that we're getting everything right. A whole lot of research goes into the work we do for these comics.
Sure.
And like when the first in the 1940s they released a couple of Saint comics, and Leslie Charteris went back to the publisher, and he had like a long list of critiques of the way the Saint was dressed, the way Patricia Holm, the female lead, the way that she was portrayed, and and the fact that you let two guys beat up the Saint, there's no way two guys would ever beat up the Saint. Like he had just this long list of complaints, and he would go and give that sort of editorial because this character was important to him, it's important to us, and we want to make sure that we get it right. And unlike a lot of the other things that we've talked about, this doesn't have any of the real problematic stuff in there.
Right.
This I think the story in and of itself holds the test of time. And so, whether you're a Roger Moore, the Saint person, or a Basil Rathbone, or heaven forbid, a Val Kilmer Saint person, let me be very clear. The Val Kilmer Saint movie, I think, is a very good movie, just not a very good Saint movie. That there was a totally different guy that just happened to have the same name as Simon Templar. So,
I actually want to go back and call out a lie that Alan just told.
oh, okay.
I apologize. Again, you're not supposed to lie on the internet, Alan. Earlier he talked about not comparing anything we're doing to Superman, right? So if you don't know about the Press Guardian is a reporter who is bulletproof. So it's basically the Clark Kent half of the Superman story being told without any of the capes or tights or anything like that. So he lied there just a little bit. But it's like there's a meme that goes around every once in a while that's like I want to see a movie where the CIA keeps trying to kill Clark Kent because he's a good reporter and they can't because he's secretly Superman, but they keep trying
Right.
anyway. And
Yeah.
Alan kind of unintentionally did that meme because Alan doesn't participate in meme culture at all. But um, one of the things that is also going to be interesting is I've never done this before is we're doing a direct adaptation of Meet the Tiger. So
That's
like this
cool.
isn't us taking a thing and running with it and doing our own spin on it. I mean, we'll have our own particular flair, literary flair, if we have that. And
Sure.
but this is going to be more of a direct adaptation of it.
Very cool.
It'll be set in modern times, mostly because Dan Butcher, who's also agreed to sign on to do the artwork, is tired of writing things in the 1940s. He wants to write a modern, he wants to draw a modern comic, and we're like, no problem, man. We can absolutely set this in modern day, and the story, even in a modern setting, the story still holds up
Yeah.
really well. So,
Very cool.
and The this also has the benefit of having a movie based on it in the public domain. The only problem is it's not available streaming anywhere. So like I had to go buy two DVDs and send one to Ben and me so that we can see what the movie adaptation looked like.
Wow.
So I don't know exactly how we're going to do a watch along with that. We may just have to have everybody come sit in our living room. But um, but yeah, we still have the potential to do a watch along with this as well when we get around to this.
Very awesome. That's
Oh yeah,
awesome.
again, I lied on the internet. I completely forgot that we were updating it for being a modern adaptation, not a direct adaptation. My apologies. This is what I get for
It's
missing staff meetings. We had
right.
this meeting
It's
like a half a year ago, so and we've written more comics since then.
right.
Gosh. Cool, guys. Well, before I let you go, one thing I like to do at the end is give my guests a chance to share some creative advice with the other creators out there. So if you could share one piece of advice about being a creative, what would you guys say?
And you are way more creative than me, so
Oh man. So there's a lot of advice out there. There's a lot of advice out there for writing and creating and all that stuff. And
Yeah,
all of it is good and all of it is bad because it all depends on the person. So
sure.
whatever, like, so me, I'm always trying new writing programs, new writing books. This is the thing that's going to make me productive and get me organized and all this stuff. And like at some point you need to hack yourself and make sure that you are working with, you know, the best way you can work. So I hit a really good creative patch this weekend. I was working on something and my I kept trying to sidetrack myself and like, oh, I should probably go get ready for a day. It's like, no, the brain is working, the brain is firing on all four cylinders. Like keep going. Just keep going as long as you can. Discipline is important, but just remember it's about hacking yourself. The old saying, you don't play the game of poker, you play the guy across the table from you. Well, you're
Yeah.
the guy across the table. You got to play yourself to get the stuff out and get it working.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, if you're already in the zone, like you don't
Yes.
want to leave there. Just while you're there, get everything done you can
Right,
because
but
you don't know how you're going to get back there.
like the obligation monkey is like, hey, you got this stuff you got to do today, man. You got to get up, you got to get a
Yep.
shower, you got to go to church, you got to do whatever, and you do have to do those things, but ride the
Yeah.
creative wave as long as you can.
Yep. That's good advice. Alan, what about you?
And I apologize for mentioning a rival podcast on here, but
Oh, you're totally fine.
we're big fans of the Awesome Comics podcast. They're a group of
Mhm.
guys out of the UK, and one of the things that they've done really well is they've built a Slack community, and that community of other comics creators. So talking specifically about comics, I think is really helpful because it
Sure.
gives you that encouragement, it gives you that advice, and I think finding your community is really important. And then going back to what Ben said, and I think what other people have said is if you're an artist, draw. If you're a writer, write. You will find your methods that work for you, and those methods may change over time. But if you spend all of your time trying to figure out what the right way to write is, or what the right way to draw is, the correct way to write, the correct way to draw, there we go. I don't want to use incorrect terminology in front of the English major. Um, but get out there and do it because there isn't a wrong way. There's only wrong ways for you, and the only way to find out what the wrong ways for you are to start doing them until you find the right way, the correct way for you.
That's good advice. And yeah, it's totally fine to mention other podcasts. I like to use my platform. It's not a very big platform, but I like to use my platform to help elevate other creators, regardless of what they do. So everyone go check out the Awesome Comics podcast because it sounds like an awesome podcast. All right, so for me, actually, no, before one other thing, let's give you guys a chance to plug yourselves. Where can people stay up to date with stuff from you guys, see what's coming, and even reach out and buy comics? Where can people find you?
So our website is www.greenarcher.io. And so you can buy all of our comics there, both in digital and print format. And all of our digital comics are DRM-free PDFs. So buy it, share it with all your buddies. Kind of like your Netflix password used to be able to. Uh, You can follow us on Instagram, which I'm not used to saying because our Instagram channel was terrible for a while, but we hired a nice lady that does our Instagram for us now, and it's gotten a lot better. So we're at Green Archer Comics on Instagram. And then if you all are watching this on YouTube, I know that I subscribe to you on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is at Green Archer Comics as well. We do a lot of reviews uh, of we do shorts reviews of comics, both indie comics and DC and Marvel there. So if you're watching on YouTube, follow us there as well.
Alan also does slightly longer form videos about how the sausage is made on comic creating. So he shares details about Kickstarters and things like that, about how they run, advice he has, so it's not just him reviewing comics. That is delightful to watch, and he always gets an upvote from me. So he should get an upvote from everyone else who is watching this. But he shares a lot of information as well. So it is both entertaining and informative.
Very cool. Now, for me, first of all, I want to shout out again Mike Belcher, good friend of mine. He's the one that did the main artwork for my show. Makes me look super cool every time he draws me. Also check out Millerton Gazette. I believe that's the name of his Substack. He shares a lot of his comics there, and you can, I believe it probably has a link to where his comics are. The Man in the Mask. It's a great comic book, very old school feel, kind of like with what you guys have. So everyone go check it out. Um, I want to thank the band Polygon Horizon. Their song Pizza Force is the song I use for the show. Check them out on Bandcamp and SoundCloud. They're awesome. You can find me, Fueled by Weird, on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Shoot me an email at fueledbyweird@gmail.com. You can also find me on YouTube, Spotify, and anywhere podcasts are sold. And you can find all my links in my brand new Linktree. Just go to Linktree and look up Fueled by Weird. You'll find everything that you can ever want to find there. Um, Check out my friend Hassel Hutchison. He's got a channel called the Nerdy Manroom Show. He has a show by the same name. He also does reviews and he does a show called Card Subject to Change. It's a lot of what ifs about pro wrestling, which is another thing I'm a huge fan of. The two of us together, we make up the Stay Weird Network. It's a brand new podcast network dedicated to bringing some awesome back to the internet. Go check us out at Stay Weird Network on YouTube and Instagram, and you can also email us at stayweirdnetwork.com. We also have a page on Facebook. It's the Stay Weird Network. It's a group where we invite creators to come share your stuff, share projects you're working on, share Kickstarter stuff, keep up to date on all the podcasts. So if you guys are on Facebook, you're also more than welcome to come there and share out Kickstarters and all that kind of stuff. If you like the
Thank you.
show, you're welcome. If you like the show, please leave a review and tell your friends because word of mouth is my friend. And remember, kids, life's too short to be normal, so stay weird. Alan, Ben, thanks so much for joining me tonight, you guys.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having us. It's been a real pleasure.